Hello and welcome to part 16 of our video series on building a Node, Express and Postgres based API. Today we're going to be extending our user functionality and adding a user redactor. What I mean by a user redactor is something that's going to take a user object and remove any sensitive information from that before we send that back as an API response. At the moment, when we have a user return from our root endpoint here, it's actually going to return the entire user, including their hashed password. So we're going to want to remove any sensitive information before we send it back, so that we're not sending back anything too sensitive to the front end. So we've got a list of things that we're going to do today. We're going to add a redactor. We're going to add some unit tests for it, and then we're going to have to update some existing tests because I already know that some of them are going to fail because they're expecting a password to be returned to the front end. If you want to follow along, there is a link to the GitHub repo in the video description, and the branch that we're starting from today is called part 16 start. So if you check out that branch, you'll have all the code that we've written so far, and you'll be able to follow along with what I'm doing. So what we're going to do from our user directory here, we're just going to add a redactor.js file, and in here we're going to have a single function which is going to be function redact user. It's going to take one argument, which is going to be our user. And what we're going to do within is we're actually going to extract just the required information from the user. So we're going to have a first name, user.firstname, last name, which is going to be user.lastname, email, which is going to be user.email, password. No, not password. Sorry, that's the one that we're actually going to leave out. We're going to have created at, and then finally we're going to have ID. So the ID is what's going to be created by when we insert the user into the database. First name, last name, and email are all self-explanatory, and then created at is something that gets added when we insert the record into the database as well. So the things that we're going to want to return to the front end are just these, so that we're not returning anything sensitive at all. And what we'll do is we'll just do a module.exports equals, and then we'll do redact user so that that can be exported. Because what we're going to do next is we'll add a unit test file for this particular set of functions in this folder or this file. So we'll do redactor.unit.test.js, and then we'll just import the redact user function from redactor, and then we'll add a describe block, which is we'll just describe the file that we're testing first, redactor, and then we'll add a describe block for the function that we're going to be testing, which is going to be this redact user. And then what we'll do is we'll write a test that's going to just handle the success case that we're going to want. Returns a user with only the expected fields. And what this is going to do, we'll first of all create a user that we're going to want to test. So const user equals, and then we'll have first name John. I'll add an ID as well. Last name Doe. Email john.doe@test.com. Password, and then we'll add a created at as well, which will just be a new date to ISO string, which will give us an ISO string formatted date. And then what we'll do is we will run that user through our function redact user, pass it the user, and then what we'll do is we'll just handle the next have an assertion on this that's just going to check and make sure that it's returning just the fields that we were expecting. To equal, and then we'll just grab the fields that we're expecting. So we're going to have created at, which is going to be user.created at, and then we're going to have these other fields here, and then we'll just copy these and just do user dot. So I'll have user.id, first name, last name, email, and then created at. And then what we'll also do is we'll just do an assertion just to say res.password dot to be undefined. And this will just add another assertion just to say under no circumstances are we expecting the password to even be defined at all. So we'll save that one there, and we'll just go ahead and run our unit tests just to make sure those are all working as expected. And we've got passing unit test, and we've got the let's just try and find this the redactor here, return the user with only the expected field. So we've got that one there. And now what we are going to need to do is apply this new redact user where we're expecting it to be used. And the main place that we're going to be using this is within our user router. Whenever we're returning a user to the front end, what we're actually going to want to do is return a user that's been passed through this redact user function. So we'll just wrap that in redact user, and that'll make sure that any user that's returned to the front end for this create user function will have the password removed from it so that we're not leaking anything that we don't want to the front end. So we'll run that. We'll run the unit tests again, and what I'm expecting to happen is, we've got a failing test, and the reason behind that is within our unit tests for this function, we mock out all of the external calls, so we mock out this create user call here so that it actually doesn't return anything, because we're not really interested in what it returns, we're just interested in the fact that it gets called. So what we're going to need to do is just head over to our root unit test file, and we'll just add in another mock in here which will just mock out the redactor for us, and then once we run our test again, those will all pass okay. What we'll also need to do is, because like I was saying in the previous video, unit tests are great for when you just want to test the actual functionality within a singular function, but what these tests won't do is catch the actual response that is returned to the front end, and that's where we'll rely on our integration tests. So we'll just start up a service. So we've got our HTTP server and everything started up, and then we'll run our integration tests. And what we'll expect is one of our integration tests should fail, because when we've got our user create integration test here, we've got our 200 response, which is creates a new user, and what that's actually saying is we're expecting the user that's returned to the front end to have this password here, which we're actually no longer expecting. So we can remove that from our integration test, rerun our integration test, we should have everything passing, rerun our unit tests, we're passing, and we've got 100% test coverage there as well. So that'll cover us for this new user redactor helper that we've added into our code base. And the reason that we've added this in is we're going to be adding some more routes shortly, which are going to be for fetching a user, updating a user, and those kind of things. And we're actually going to want to make sure that we've got some nice reusable code that we can apply in a whole bunch of different areas. So that's why we've exported it and had it, or extracted it and had it in its own separate function. But that's it for today's video. I hope that's been informative, and I'll see you next time.